Hello everyone, I'm here today to talk about my favorite books of 2025, and I have decided this year to divide it into fiction and non-fiction because there was just too many books to talk about. It's not necessarily that I think that all of these books are perfect, they were 5 stars for me, but it's more of the books that have stayed with me throughout the year, and so I wanted to talk to you about them. Let's start a bit with the literary fiction side of things. The first book that I wanted to talk about is Aednan by Linnea Axelsson. This is actually like an epic poem, and it's divided in 3 parts. It talks about the situation of Swami people in Sweden, Sami people in Sweden, which are a native population that have been kind of repressed for a long time. And so the first part is around the 1910s, I believe, and it follows the herds and the traditional way of life. On the second part, we follow more on I think it's the 50s or so, when their land was taken and destroyed, and the last part is more modern day, and we follow these women trying to reclaim and get compensations for the things that were done to their land. I think it was a very interesting way to tell the story. At first I was thinking it's a little bit boring, it's, you know, people just following herds, it's nothing special, but as the book went on, I thought it was very, very powerful. And I also think that it is it's not a story that we hear very often, because when we think about indigenous people, we think about America, North and South, we talk about Australia, we don't talk so much about European populations that have been repressed. And so this was a very interesting book, a very interesting perspective, and I'm very, very happy that I read it. I read this for the Warwick's Prize for Women in Translation, as one that I was interested in from last year, I believe, and it was completely worth it. I'm really happy that I got to read this. The next one that I read in the literary fiction sort of things is Nesting by Roisin O'Donnell. Very big book, and this was, I think it was the Women's Prize for Fiction long list, and it basically follows this woman in Ireland that has been in a very emotionally abusive relationship. He was never quite physical, and so she questions herself if it's really that bad, but we do see by his actions that it must have been that bad. And at the beginning of the book she's leaving, and it's the whole process of leaving that we're following. So she has 2 daughters, and she moves out one day, just takes her things and go away. And we follow the housing crisis, how difficult it is for her to get accommodation. She lives for months and months and months in this tiny room in a hotel that the government provides for people that are homeless, which in principle sounds good, but when you think about it, if you live there for months with kids and babies, you don't have a space for them to play, you don't have the ability to cook for them, to store food, all these things that I would not have thought about it are in this book. We also see the legal side of things, so the rights of the man as a father of these girls, and how despite all the abuse and how little he actually cares for these girls, he has the right to have them every once in a while, and she doesn't want to do it. So there are those issues with the law, that how much should he be allowed to see his daughters that he not really mistreats but neglects. There is also the conversation about how it all started, how easy it is to, you think it's never going to happen to me. I'm an educated woman, blah blah blah, and then you meet this guy and he's very nice and you get married, and then things start escalating, and there were maybe little signs at the beginning that you didn't see until much, much later, because they were not big things. And so it also talks about how these things happen. And then the last thing that it touches upon very heavily is how difficult it is actually to leave, and like the emotional baggage that you carry once you leave, and how easy it is to be forced in one way or another to go back to the situation, and like mentally how trapped you are in this cycle of thinking about him first and then yourself. There was one point in the book I wanted to throw it out the window, because she had finally put together her life. She now has a job, she has a house, she's very happy, and because he obviously notices that, he contacts her at some point like, hey, I'm being kicked out of my house, can I crash on your couch for a couple of nights? And obviously you're like, no, you don't let him in your house, you don't. But yeah, at some point she does, because she feels guilty, and you know, there's still a lot of feelings for him. And I wanted to throw this out the window and then go back and take my book back and continue reading and see what happens. It's not the best written, the best book ever maybe, but I think it was very effective on telling the story and emotionally engaging the reader, so for that I really appreciated it. Then the next book that I want to talk about is the book of Disappearance by Ibtsam Azem. I think this one was in the International Booker, and this one it's a very interesting way at looking at the Palestinian situation. So in this book we follow a number of characters. Some of them are Israeli, some of them are Palestinian, and then at the beginning of the book all Palestinians disappear, and we see the reactions of the Israelis when that happens. At first some of them are saying that it's a plot against Israel. Some of them recognize all the work that the Israelis are doing, and some of them just very bluntly say it doesn't matter why they left, they were a plague, so it's good. And we also see even the ones that we think were the better ones, that actually did care about the Palestinians, they slowly moved to fill the space that was left by the Palestinians. And so it is a very interesting commentary on what is happening without actually focusing on the violence of it all, which I think often these kind of books do, and like legitimately so. It's horrible, the violence, but this book was trying to look more at the fundamental idea of the space that Palestinians are taking, and what would the Israelis do when relating to that space. And I think it was very well done. It was a very interesting way to look at the situation. And then the last literary book that I wanted to talk about was The Forbidden Notebook by Alba de Cespedes. This is, I read it in audio, so I don't have the physical copy, but this is about, it's quite old, I think, from the 50s or the 60s, and it's following this woman. And the book is written as a diary of this woman, and at the beginning she's talking about, she got this notebook and she starts to write her ideas and her life on it. This woman does have a job, but there is a level of shame on having a job for a woman, and it's just more of a practical winning the money kind of thing. But she, in the notebook, she starts writing about how undervalued she feels at home, and how actually having a job gives her value outside of her family, and she's actually appreciated for the work she does. And a lot of the book is actually her talking about her having this notebook that we are reading, and how difficult it is to hide it from her family, but how necessary that is, because they will not understand. They just see her as the mother, they just see her as this like piece of furniture almost. And so basically this is a book that has a lot of female rage about how undervalued like women and moms are in society, and it is scary how relevant it is to today, despite all of the years that have been in between. and it was very brilliantly done, the way that the book was constructed. So I really enjoyed it, and I would recommend. Then I have also been, like this year I've been into not necessarily a fantasy sci-fi kick, but I have been like enjoying a little bit more of that side of literature and not so much literary fiction. I feel like I have been reading so much literary fiction in the last few years that they kind of all blend a little bit to each other. So I have been venturing a little bit more genre-wise, and one of them that is, I guess, sci-fi is Under the Eye of the Big Bird by Hiromi Kawakami, which was also in the International Booker. And this is a very strange book. This is we follow, like, it's almost like they're connected short stories that make sense at the end, but basically in this world, reproduction of humans is a problem. And so there are different ways in which this has been tackled. One of them is like just use women as baby making machines. There is also some places where like animal DNA is being used, and it does have a lot of commentary on like the state of the world and why people do not want to have babies anymore, but also why they might not be able more and more to have babies. And of course this is a dystopian, so it's not in the present. It's not in the present, but it is based on things that we are living now, climate change and all of that. And there is also this big entity that is called the mothers, that happen here and there throughout the book, and it's very unclear until the very end what is really happening. But I really enjoyed the commentary on the state of the world and how it's a dystopian, but it's not necessarily like apocalyptic, or it's not necessarily like an evil power made this happen. It's more of a natural way of things going until it reaches a point where it's not sustainable anymore, and how sometimes we want to conserve things that shouldn't be there anymore as well. Very interesting book. I think I need a reread to kind of understand what the book was saying and what the book was getting at some point, but really enjoyed this one. Then the other one that is kind of dystopian situation on that realm is The Chrysalids by John Wyndham. I had read John Wyndham before and I didn't think anything particular about it. I think it was good, but whatever. But The Chrysalids I read for my book club, and the discussion and the book itself I think was really interesting. I really enjoyed this one. It's basically set in a world in which any kind of deviation from the normal means that the government will take these kids away and kill them, basically, or like abandon them somewhere to die. And we follow these kids that kind of have telepathic powers, and how that will be a deviation from the normal. And so they have been hiding it for really long, and it's a bit yeah, it's a commentary on, I guess, disability, but also being different, and what is normal, what is not normal, and it has stuck with me. I think it was very very poignant, and the things that it was trying to say, a little bit preachy, a little bit simplistic at times, but I think it was very interesting concept, and I really enjoyed it. The next one I want to talk about is really a different one for me, because it's a mystery novel, and it's Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. It's the first time I read Agatha Christie, and even though this book was not perfect for me, I get it. I get why people like Agatha Christie so much, and I think this is more of a placeholder of Agatha Christie than just this book specifically. This book is set in a train, and there are like 12 people in this carriage, and one of the men in the carriage is dead at some point in the night, and this detective happens to also be in the train, and when he finds the dead man, he starts trying to figure out what happened, and so he goes through questioning all of the people in the train, and we follow like the interviews, and then at the end it outlines like these are the possibilities, and then he gives you kind of the solution, but it's like a piece it together by yourself first, like a Cluedo almost kind of game. It was very, yeah, I fully understand why people make mystery nights out of this, how people try to solve. It's like a puzzle that you're trying to solve. I think the solution of this particular one was a little bit of a cop-out, but that might just be me. But I think that the concept is so fun that I'm definitely wanting to pick more Agatha Christie in the future. So this is more of a placeholder of I found that Agatha Christie and I want to read more, rather than I love this book particularly. I love the concept, so we will see how much of that I read in the future. And then the last sort of category for my favorites this year is the fantasies. I have been enjoying quite a few fantasies this year. I think part of that is me doing the hair kit challenge, but might also be because I've been busy and it has been hectic in a lot of it, and fantasy feels a little bit more escapist than literary fiction. Sometimes you just want to go somewhere else in the world. So the first one that I wanted to mention is Nimona by Stevenson. This is a graphic novel, and it was a lot of fun. It's very quirky. It's about this girl that appears in this supervillain home one day, and she's like, I want to be your employee, I really admire your work. And he doesn't want at first, but eventually he agrees, and he's like, they are actually almost portrayed as fighting the bad guy, which is the government, which is trying to control things and hide secrets, and so they're trying to fight against that. And also this girl does have a big secret from herself, and we also kind of try to work out what her past actually is and why is she here, what is she actually doing. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I think it was very quirky and cute, but also like some real topics are discussed as well. And on that note, one of the other fantasies that I wanted to mention is Silverborn by Jessica Townsend. This is the newest book in the series, the fourth one. I read the first three, and then I read this one because the first three I think I read in like 2021, so a long time ago. So I reread them as preparation to read this one, and I'm very glad I did. And I really enjoyed this one. I think this one expands the world even a little bit more, and also the past of not only Morrigan but also some of the other characters in these books. And I think they are very fun. I think, like, if this has been told many times, that if you like Harry Potter but want to move away from the turfiness of it, this is a good place to go. And I agree. I think they have a very similar nostalgic feel to them. Obviously it's not the same because I did not grow up with them, but definitely I will give this to my daughter as opposed to Harry Potter, so that she doesn't have the nostalgia of Harry Potter and she can build that nostalgia with these ones, because I think that will be nice. And then the last one that I wanted to mention is The Will of the Many by James Islington. Again, this was not a complete perfect book for me. There is a little bit too much violence and too much war in it for it, but I think when I was reading I was so captured by the story, and it has been a long time since I was so captured by this story. I also read The Strength of the Few this year. I think I didn't have the brain power for that book. It was a lot more complicated than this one, and it was a little bit too much for me. But I will reread it at some point, probably when the next book comes out. But yeah, This one, I was so into it when I was reading it. I just wanted to keep reading. I just wanted to know what happened. It was one of those books that is more like one more chapter, one more chapter, one more chapter, and then you're 100 pages farther and you're like, what happened? That kind of book, and that has not happened for a long time for me, so I was very happy to have read this. This follows Viz, who is an orphan boy, and he, at the beginning of the book, he's taken by this man to be adopted and then sent to this academy where they train, in principle, the best of this world. In this world, the power system is called the will, so it's literally like the energy of people, and they can suck the energy out of people and give it to higher ranking people. So it's a hierarchy in that, like, very defined and very structured hierarchy. There is no buts and maybes in this structure, and we follow Viz, who was trying to live out of this hierarchical system to be swept away into this academy, and in principle he would have to enter this hierarchy also, which he's not very willing to do, but yeah, we follow his reasoning, we follow his past and why that might be. We follow also this mystery that there is around this academy and what happened in this academy in the past, and that's why this man adopts Viz and wants to bring him to the academy for him to also investigate this thing that happened many years before. And there are a lot of plot lines that are like converging, and I think it was very interesting. But for me, the most appealing thing of this book were the characters and the relationships that they built, and the things that they have to do together and how they would interact. And the setup is very different, but this academy and these trials that they have to go through, they reminded me a little bit of the feeling of the Hunger Games. Not that the book is similar to that, but the feelings are somewhat comparable. So yeah, I also really enjoyed that one. Of course, I enjoyed all of these ones. That's why they are in this. So yeah, those are the best books that I've read this year. Let me know what were your best books and if any of these are in your list as well. And until next video, bye!